I'm very interested in transition. How do we get from where we are today to this distant vision? And I'm very pragmatic, and so precisely how are we going to pay for this? How are we going to build it out? And how are we going to innovate on this thing? How are we going to make all these great ideas actually happen? And that's really where I've been thinking. So I'm going to take you down a path of my thought process, and I promise we'll end up the answer to that question, but in the beginning you'll think, why in heck is she talking about this? So let's go. So if we were in another conference, there's been a lot of talk, I'd want to say 3 years ago, about, oh my God, look at Wikipedia and Flickr and YouTube, eBay and Threadless, what do all these things have in common? And it's just like this amazing thing. How in heck did that happen? What was going on there? And really it was, the word was collaborative production. And my favorite example of collaborative production is Re-Captcha. And so what Re-Captcha is, in case you haven't heard of it, because it's such a fabulous thing, I'm hoping you have seen this, is all these books and materials that have been scanned, trying to turn them from print into something that is machine readable and searchable. Of course, it makes mistakes. And those little twisted mistakes are ones that are given up. Instead of me entering to tell that Robin is not a computer when she's online, I don't want to put the VLQC, which is a useless 10 keystrokes. Instead, the millions and millions of users who are showing that they're not computers, they read this piece, only emanates, and they turn those errors into now machine-readable format. So the New York Times is doing this for all of its materials, and you'll see this done elsewhere. And I think this is collaborative production. A useless bunch of keystrokes that millions and millions of us were doing, they're now being put to this amazing good use. So as Chris said, I am known for Zipcar, and Zipcar is people using cars by the hour and by the day, and parked in a distributed way. And as I was thinking about collaborative production, I thought, well, what Zipcar really was collaborative consumption. One car being used by 20 to 40 people, and making use of that excess capacity in a very interesting way. But as I think further, it's not just collaborative consumption that Zipcar was, it really is collaborative infrastructure, which is a really different way of looking at it. And here's an older map of Zipcar, which is to say that I, Robin Chase, and every Zipcar member has access to 5,000 cars in the US, 7,000 cars worldwide, and this infrastructure was built by Robin's individual demand with Carlos's individual demand, and now we have a fleet of vehicles that have been placed, all these places, based on my individual purchasing of an hour here, an hour there. So we built this robust infrastructure based on very small collaborative demands. And my favorite example, and here's for the comic relief part, of collaborative infrastructure is what I think of as bed sharing. So in the olden days, I could be coming to Madrid, and instead of staying in my hotel bedroom upstairs, I would have a friend, and I would stay in their room, and I might be their excess capacity room, and I might get to stay in a room that looks like this, or I might get to have a double bed, better yet, as excess capacity, or worse yet, I could be stuck in the teenager's room, and he's shunted to the couch. So this clearly didn't work, so the private sector invented things called hotels. And in fact, hotels are bed sharing. Their job is to get a return on asset 7 days a week. How many can we fill those 7 days and build out this infrastructure? If we look at how long it took out to build this infrastructure, I went online and did a cursory look, and it appears to me that the largest hotel chain in the world is the Intercontinental Hotels Group. And over 60 years, they've built 4,400 hotels in 100 countries. And just to think about what it took to build out that infrastructure, imagine all the hotels that failed, that were built in the wrong spots. And the digging, the plans, the financing, the making them work, 60 years to get these 4,400 hotels. But in fact, that's not the largest bed sharing in the world. The largest bed sharing in the world is couchsurfing.com, and it's where people put their own excess capacity of beds onto the internet for people to come stare at. And so you think, who in heck would be doing that? Who is inviting people into their homes? And it's clearly ladies with too many cats, or couch surfing, really. To give equal time to men with dogs, absolutely, big dogs. So is that the type of people who do this? And in fact, no, it's not. These are real pictures that I plucked off their website quickly that look kind of like stock photo. They're regular, everyday people and include me because I needed to do some research. So these are the people who do couch surfing. And what is really incredible is couch surfing is 7 years old. It has 1.2 million couches, 2 million beds in 200 countries. And I just want to go back to this table to remind you. So what couch surfing did in 7 years, 1.2 million beds, compared to the Intercontinental, think of the money, the 60 years of time to get 650,000 rooms. It is a dramatically different, the speed and scale, I mean, I just want to pause for a minute. It's astounding. So, how do we get this speed and scale? And as I've been looking at this, what I see is excess capacity brought together onto a unique platform, onto a common platform. My favorite kind of excess capacity right now, I think it comes in all forms, to be quite clear. I think excess capacity has many, many shapes and sizes, but I'm particularly interested in excess capacity of people's own stuff, excess capacity. So we can go back and look at that list. Wikipedia, it was idle knowledge. If you think of Clay Shirky, he talks about, excess mental capacity that contributed to Wikipedia. Flickr, personal photos. YouTube, personal videos. eBay and Etsy, personal stuff. And couchsurfing, personal beds. So if we think of this, how do we build this collaborative infrastructure using people's personal stuff? It means we also have collaborative financing. Now, how is that remarkable? Think about collaborative financing. It's not some giant company or some government that has to do the financing. It's individuals who are doing the financing with their own personal stuff. And for me, this is really the big breakthrough. You can get the speed and scale with individuals making very small financial investments. And Skype, I want to point out to you, is collaborative infrastructure built on the back of end users' investments. They built a telecommunications company in a matter of years at a fraction of the cost, because we all had our personal computers hooked up to the internet with cameras and audio. Done. It's a really powerful tool. So here's a picture of all of my stuff. And as I said, I think I'm talking about assets, but I think of what is the world made up of? People and institutions, their experiences, their expertise, and their assets. This is the world of stuff. And I think talking about people's assets, we buy these things for one killer app. So I bought my house because I wanted to live in it. That was my killer app. And the fact that I have an extra bed left over, didn't have to make an additional investment. That's something that people staying at my house, I don't have to make an investment. They can do that for free. So if we think of our little circle here, I want to say this dark blue part is the excess capacity, this unused capacity. The platform for participation enables people to put their excess capacity, group it all together onto this platform, and then, of course, the platform, what's really remarkable about excess capacity is while you're putting your excess capacity online, you're in fact getting access to the entire asset itself, not just the little slender piece that was extra, but the entire piece. So while I'm using Skype is using my excess capacity, it's not like they're getting a little tiny piece of my computer. They're getting the full-on computer and full-on internet bandwidth for the moment that I need it. And so what this ends up giving us is speed. I didn't have to buy those hotels, build them, place them, finance them, do all that stuff. Those assets existed, built, maintained, out there, done. So it can happen very fast. And this scale of this distributed network, which if I were spending a little more time, is really fascinating. It gives you this resilience and this low risk. When I look at this slide, we've been talking a lot today about infrastructure and devices. Having that circle is a closed proprietary system. That was the old way. I would buy my asset, I wouldn't have my stuff, it would be a closed proprietary system. What I'm suggesting, counter to Carlos, is that we need to create more open, multi-purpose devices because it totally transforms the economics of the proposition and the speed and potential for uptake. So by not creating, the old way, closed proprietary systems, the new way, open, multi-purpose devices, and spectrum and radios. So bonus, resilience, redundancy. I was struck this morning by this term that I have to use more, which was incremental extensibility. You get incremental extensibility with distributed networks, and I think that's what we really need when we're talking about the transition from where we are today to where we need to go. So we know that, I just remark that we have been stuck in business school years past, and business thinking, centralized, decentralized, centralized, decentralized, as if that was all there was, when in fact distributed systems are the real name of the game. And I also wrote down to myself that collaborative, when we think of collaborative production, collaborative consumption, collaborative infrastructure, collaborative financing, it really is saying distributed production, distributed consumption, distributed financing, distributed infrastructure. So in the end, these are kind of funny things I chose, but what I think we need is dramatically more openness. Oop, that didn't work, my little open word there. So I'm a big advocate of open data. We haven't talked about that. Where appropriate, open networks, open spectrum. I don't think we're running out of spectrum. I think we're running out of closed, proprietary, single-purpose spectrum. But when we have open spectrum, like Wi-Fi, that's where all the innovation has happened. Open devices, appreciate the 500,000 apps that have been built on top of iPhones and Androids. And I'll point out, Carlos, that the Android, which is an open system compared to iPhone, the pace of uptake and applications has been outpacing iPhone, as you know. In September and October, more of those were bought. So more open is better. And I think this is where, coming back to where I started, I really don't like this particular slide, but this is where, when you have open systems, every single piece can be communicating with each other. And while I think we don't have to have some clever person at Qualcomm or Apple or Nokia thinking it up, when things are open, you can enable those tens of thousands of engineers who do exist out there to create these innovations, and they will be able to experiment at a low-cost pace, adapt, iterate, and move us really quickly along. And I think that's how we will get to where we want to go. So what is the fastest path to the Internet of Things? I think it's going to be open platforms that enable participation, innovation, infrastructure financing. Thank you.